When should the employer send notice of termination of labor contract to employee before contract expiration? To ensure the compliance with law, it is suggested to seek advice from employment lawyers in Vietnam. The following is the initial guidance for consideration and reference. When employer can terminate labor contract. Expiration is one of the circumstances which permit termination of labor contract under the Labor Code. Accordingly, the employer must inform in writing to the employee of the terminating date of labor contract at least 15 days prior to the expiration. Termination of labor relationship in each circumstance must follow different conditions and procedures to ensure the interests and obligations of both employee and employer and avoid potential labor disputes. Previously, an administrative penalty was applied to violations of the labor contract termination notice mentioned above. If the employer fails to inform the employer will be subject to a warning or a fine with amount from VND 500,000 to VND 1 million. However, the Decree 28/2020 NDCP issued on March 1, 2020 by the government has repealed sanction for this behavior. If the employee continues to work upon expiration of labor contract, both parties will be required to sign a new labor contract within the next 30 days, otherwise the signed contract will become an indefinite term. Failure of the employer to inform the labor contract termination to the employee does not mean that the labor relationship is automatically extended after the expiration. If both parties fail to sign a new labor contract within the next 30 days, but the employee still do normal assigned job and is paid a full monthly salary, an indefinite term labor contract is deemed as entered into by them. Any disputes arising out then will be settled based on provisions of indefinite term labor contract and laws. The Labor Code 2019 repealed the employer's informing responsibility upon expiration of labor contract except in a few circumstances, such as the employee being sentenced to imprisonment, disciplined, expelled. The employer is required to inform the employee in writing the termination of the labor contract. How employment lawyers in Vietnam could help. Employees, as well as the labor collective and employers, should pay attention to selecting the most appropriate and optimal resolution solution when labor disputes occur. It is also suggested to consult with employment lawyers in Vietnam of law firm specializing in employment matters for efficiency.